Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Catching up on some listener questions. I have a lot that I need to get through. This one's all the way from November. So guys, get on me. Do not let me fall behind how I have been falling behind. Life has been definitely getting in the way with this. But I have a question from Megan Larson. And for those of you in the HA Society watching the replay of this live stream or who end up being here live, there's a lot of toys in the background that I need to clean up. It doesn't look as profesh, but you guys on the YouTube can't see it. Okay, so today's question from Megan is, hey Danny, I've recently discovered your podcast and I've been loving listening, especially the Q&As. Great! I have a few questions. I'm almost 15 months postpartum, but I've weaned from breastfeeding for almost 3 months. I did unintentionally lose weight while breastfeeding, but I have been trying hard to gain it back this year. This past month or so, I've been seeing so much watery, creamy cervical mucus, but still no ovulation. Occasionally, it is kind of stretchy and goopy. Can you talk more about what this type of cervical mucus means in recovery? From your experience with clients, how soon is recovery around the corner after experiencing this type of cervical mucus? I know everyone is different, but I'm just generally curious. Also, what does it mean when I see the increased mucus for a week or so and then it becomes more dry? Even when I haven't made changes to my diet or exercise. And then she has a second question about tracking, so I'll answer that one first. Okay, so cervical mucus, 15 months postpartum. Why is there so much? There is so much. That happened to me. It was so much that it was like impacting my life. And I needed to change my underwear on a regular basis. So it basically, your prolactin levels are coming all the way down. Your estrogen is finally coming back up. Your postpartum, you have not cycled in. So she's 15 months postpartum and then she had her 9-month pregnancy. So she hasn't cycled in 2 years. So your body it has some follicles. It's trying to do the thing and it hasn't done it in a long time. Like, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as it hasn't done it in a long time. Now, a lot of people who go through HA and know, like, who have already gotten their first periods and their first ovulations, they know that the mucus pattern that you see before your first ovulation does not match a textbook. So the textbook will say you'll have cervical mucus for 3 to 5 days in the lead up to ovulation, and it will go from dry to creamy, lotiony to egg white, stretchy, and maybe even watery. And then you'll ovulate. Well, that does not happen for the majority of women. Like, in the chat, did you get the textbook or mucus pattern for your first ovulation or not? So that is just expected, that it's your first time, and it can be 2 weeks. You could see it for up to 6 weeks. If you're at that 6-week point and you're still seeing tons of cervical mucus and no ovulation, there may be something you can do to help that across the line, and I would do that. So that's where just doing a review comes in. I'll put some resources in the description of this for how you can review if there are any areas for you to actually tackle that might help get that ovulation over the line. But the reason you're seeing so much is because this is your body's first time doing it in a long time. And it can take a while, right? So cycles require momentum. Their cycles are circular. The more they spin, the more they keep spinning. And then, if something starts to disrupt it, it will slow and it will slow till eventually it will stop. And it picks up in the same way. So it's going from 0 and it's push, 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 push. It can take a big effort from the body to get that first ovulation in a really long time across the line. So you do need to expect to see signs of your body actually trying really hard to do that. And then Megan's second question is about cycle tracking. I've been trying to get a read of my basal body temperature based on your tips, but I always wake up in the middle of the night to pee anywhere between 1 to 4 a.m. And then usually am in and out of sleep until the morning. My thermometer also makes loud beeping sounds when I use it, and it wakes my husband, so I can't take my temperature while I'm in bed. The last few mornings I've taken my temperature, I've already been slightly awake for a while before taking it. And this morning I got out of bed and immediately took my temperature and went to the bathroom. My 2 readings were 97.2 and 97.6. How much do you think already being awake and standing up affects these readings? An entire degree? 0.5 of a degree? I know that this leads to inaccurate readings, but I'm trying to get a baseline for where I'm at. Yes. This is a common problem. Ideally, if you're waking up between 1 to 4 and able to go back to sleep decently, that's a non-issue. Like, at the end of the day, if the exact same thing is happening every single day, your readings should still be somewhat telling. Like, they might range a lot, but then when you finally ovulate and you're still having that disrupted sleep, they're still going to range a lot. So there is still a chance you can see the pattern. If you have HA and thus there's no pattern to see, from pre-ovulatory to post-ovulatory, you're just in one big, long pre-ovulatory phase, it is going to make it a little more difficult. Sometimes people use calculations. So there's actually a calculator. I think it's called whenmybaby.com. Has a calculator. And you can put in like the time you usually wake up, and it will ask you some questions and it will create a calculation for you. I don't necessarily think people need to use that. I did use it in the early days of tracking, and I was like, I realized that it was just not actually necessary. So I would just keep going as is, Megan, and until you start seeing temperatures in the 98 range consistently, even if they're a bit up and down because of your sleep, then you still just haven't ovulated. But you may be a decent candidate for something like a temp drop then. You're not really going to be able to see clearly what your exact baseline is, but you're going to be able to read your chart easier because the nature of those thermometers is that it takes like the average of what your temperature was in your deepest point of sleep, and it charts that for you. So if you have interrupted sleep, that can be a really helpful way to do it. So I can link that below to try that if you want to, and then you can do orals at the same time. With the beeping that wakes up the husbands and the boyfriends and such, I know that feeling. I would lay with my hand wrapped around it in my mouth and so I could muffle the beeping, but you can get more quiet thermometers. So like I use the iProven thermometer. I like that one because it has a really big screen, because you know how in the morning you're blind, like you can't read that tiny text on the thermometer, and it has a backlit. So it has a backlit, it's giant so you can read it. And then it only beeps one time. It just goes beep. But there does sound like there's a market for people who need a thermometer that just like vibrates when it's done. That is actually a solid idea. Maybe I need to find that and like sell it on our store. I think this covers all of your questions. The last thing I'll say is standing / already being awake. If you get out of your bed and then take your temperature, you can't use it. If you get up in the middle of the night and go back to bed, if you can get like 3 more hours of sleep, you're good to go. And then last thing I'm going to say, Megan, is it sounds like your sleep's actually a bigger issue than anything else. And if you're not ovulating, but you're doing everything else, and your sleep sucks, you may need to work on your sleep. So you maybe need a nighttime routine, maybe you need to ditch the screens, maybe you need to take hella magnesium. I don't know. But that's what I would recommend for you for that one. Bay says, I have a question about returning to exercise after my 3rd recovery period. I had HA for 3 years. And since February 2024, I've had 3 recovery periods. They're about 2 months apart at the moment, and it's currently, at the time of her emailing me this, it was, oh my God, September. She says, I am fully aware Here we go. I'm fully aware that I'm not cycling properly and that they are way too long. But after completely stopping exercise for the last 2 months, I have noticed joint and back pain creeping back into my life that I don't get when I exercise regularly. I have a semi-active job, which involves dancing for up to 5 hours a day on weekends, but often is more like 2. The rest of the time, I've been sedentary with my desk-based work and have noticed my active job becoming harder and more challenging for my body as I lose fitness from not working out in the week. I want to return to some form of light maintenance exercise to help my joints and back and to maintain my cardio fitness so I recover quickly from my weekend job. How many times a week is the maximum I can get away with? I have a history of endurance and muscle building workouts, not at the same time, but I think muscle maintaining exercise is what I need for right now. Despite how much I miss running, I haven't run since December, which definitely helps my period return. For reference, I'm 29, 76 kilos up from 72 before recovering, and I haven't weighed myself regularly for mental health reasons, and I'm 5'6". Okay, so there's some good background information actually, right? So she's not heavily underweight or anything like that, that's always good to know. If she's still having irregular periods, she's probably just still not fueling correctly, right? Like on those days on the weekend with dance, she probably needs to eat more food around that. She probably needs to pick it up. And she has a sedentary desk job, so that's not so bad. And then I think she's approaching her 30s, so it's going to be harder to physically recover from that much dance without getting stiff and achy. Absolutely, movement helps with that. 100%. I completely agree. That's my experience too. So if you want to do that movement, you got to be eat. And you're a dancer, so you probably got to stretch. And having the sedentary job might be tough, right? It might be like exasperating the issue. So morning stretching, morning walking, if you're having days where you do something consistently for like 2 hours and you're in your 30s, there's no one in the world who can't get away with doing a significant amount of maintenance on that. That's just like reality. So girl has to eat, stretch, recover, foam roll, the whole thing. That's just the reality of our job, and going from 2 hours of exercise, then sedentary job. 4 hours of dancing, sedentary job, right? That's just most likely the issue. And then her cycles are just irregular because it's a toll on the body and she needs to resolve that. That's my guess.